Welcome to Backstage with John Wilson, a podcast where we go behind the scenes to look at the Christian contemporary music industry, music festivals, and real-life encouraging stories from our experience. Our goal is to display how God is using Christian music to transform lives and to take church outside the walls. For more info about Light the Way Ministry, go to lightthewayministry.com. And with that, here's this week's episode.
Welcome, everyone, to the show today, Backstage with me, John Wilson, here at Light the Way, and I'm super excited. I've got a guest on. As you can see, I've been waiting for this interview for a little bit now, and just to get to know this guy. You may have heard of his single that's out right now on the radio, Counting My Blessings, plus other singles that's coming out there. Will you all just help me welcome Seph Schlueter?
Schlueter. There's always at least a 50% chance it gets mispronounced, and that's part of the fun of it, I guess, at this point. It's even funny when no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a great introduction. It's a great talking point.
Yes, no, for real. When I do like concerts or live shows, I'm like, all right, it's Seph Schlueter, y'all. Seph, like Joseph without the Joe, or Sephora without the aura, is the easy way to remember the Seph part. And then Schlueter, I always tell this story because it makes it easy to remember. When I'm one of six, and so when my mom was pregnant with baby number 6, I begged her to name him Peter because I thought Peter Schlueter would be the coolest name. And so she didn't go with Peter, but now there's an easy way to remember the last name. It's Schlueter, rhymes with Peter, heater, leader. So Seph Schlueter.
I love it. I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about it because, it is so hard to pronounce. It's got to be a challenge for people who are like MCs introducing you on the stage. But not only the pronunciation of it, but the spelling, it always looks wrong.
I know. Well, it was funny at the Doves tour, Miles had this little bit where he was kind of like introducing people, and he's like, Seph Schlueter, Seph Schlueter, Seph Schlueter, like just like excited. He said it's the name that always sounds mispronounced and looks misspelled. And I'm like, yep, that's literally it. That's the name.
That is 100%. That is 100%. Well, either or, I'm excited that you're on the show. I'm excited that you're coming and to our festival in Olive Branch coming up in July 4th. This festival, it's 3 years old. We're in our third year, and it has grown. Let me tell you,
awesome.
We see 14,000 people there last year. We're expecting even more this year, especially with you on the bill and, your direct support for our headliner, Kane. We can't wait for that. And this is actually, I think, Kane's second appearance at the festival since we've had it. But, I want to talk a little bit about, this breakout single that you just won from the Caleb Awards, Counting My Blessings. Wow, what a song that is. Tell me a little bit about that. You wrote that. You have a co-write with that. Talk a little bit about that, how that came about. And I'm excited to hear about the story behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote it, I think it was like early 2022 actually is when I wrote it. And so I was with some friends and got together in the studio, and really we're just kind of talking about what the Lord is doing in our lives, and really came to the realization that the things we prayed for years ago, we were living in the answer to those prayers today. Years ago we had prayed for this to happen in our families and our careers and our, relationships. And now we were living in that place, but how easy it is to actually forget because we're always busy chasing the next thing or looking for the next thing or focused on what we don't have sometimes, And so for us, it was like, how do we write a song that shares that feeling of, wow, let's pause to be grateful. Let's pause to just like actually thank the Lord and actually look for, where he's moving and the blessings in our lives. And so just taking that moment to give thanks and gratitude. And really that's kind of the heart of where the song came from, and just writing it from that place of like, let's pause and just thank God and get in that habit so that when you're in the highs and the lows, like your heart is used to just thanking him.
Wow. And you have a co-write on it. Who is the co-writer for that song with you on that?
So there were 3 of us. There's myself, a guy named Jonathan Gamble, and then another guy named Jordan Sapp. So all 3 of us wrote it together. And then it was fun because the song I just came out with not too long ago, called Words Will Sing Forever,
Yeah.
was actually the second time we all wrote together. And so, and it's funny because it's like the same group of people, but a totally different sounding song. Kind of My Blessings is like an upbeat, poppy, radio song. And then Words Will Sing Forever is this like simple,
Mm.
worshipful hymn like song, which is just funny how the writing process goes because you can put the exact same
Yeah.
people in the room and the song comes out totally different.
Right, right. Well, and I want to talk about, the new single that you just alluded to, but I'm going to go back to Counting My Blessings because I had learned that there's such a even powerful time of what God was doing in your guys' life on a personal side with you and your wife and coming out with that song around a time that was probably really hard for you guys. Having this, this baby, this pregnancy, and then the loss of that, and then having to come out and sing songs like that in that time,
Yeah.
that couldn't have been easy, that couldn't have been easy. So, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear about how you overcame those moments when you had to finally get back out there during that time.
Yeah, I mean it's wild because this last year, I feel like I had the highest highs and the lowest lows in my whole life.
Mm.
And for so many reasons, and obviously that being the biggest low of them all. And just feeling that like, we worship this God that we say and we believe is good and faithful and true and with us and for us. And I still believe all those things 100%. But when like how do you respond when what you think it looks like to be good or what you think it looks like to be faithful doesn't match with what you're seeing in
Mm.
real life? And that's like the wrestle and the struggle and really just the mystery of it all. It's like, I didn't feel like I got any answers. And because I don't think there are any on this side of heaven. It's
Mm.
like you just have to really learn to trust, and really learn to be like, God, I don't understand. But better than an answer is your presence. Like his presence is always going to be better than any answer we could get. And so it's like,
Wow.
yeah, I may not get an answer, but I do have your presence. And Lord would that be enough for me? And it's a journey and it's like
Wow.
there's even highs and lows in the midst of that. But I think, knowing that like, wow, I know at the end of this, I'm like, I'm going to have to come on stage and sing Counting My Blessings. And I'm gonna have to talk
Wow.
about how good and faithful you've been. And it is just that thing of like, Lord, even when it's hard for me to feel it, help me like I still can declare your truth. I don't have to feel it to sing it. I don't have to feel it to know it's
Mm.
true. And so
Mm.
I also think it's a testimony. It's like, to be able to come on stage and to be able to sing about God's goodness after having one of the most heartbreaking things happen to you. My prayer is like, I'm like, God, like I know you use what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it to good. And so I'm like, yeah, the
Mm.
enemy meant this evil to happen in my life. But I know that you can turn it to good. And would some of that good be the fact that you bring souls closer to you as a result of this story? Like, would you actually win souls that wouldn't otherwise have known you through
Mm.
this testimony? And in that way, it's like seeing how God can use it for good is also super powerful. So, I mean, I think it was definitely a process. It's definitely still is a process sometimes, and it's a journey. And it's like, all right, but God, like, you're still Lord and you're still worthy, and I still believe, and I'm still going to trust. And I don't have the answers, but I know it's true.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing it shows too in everyone that, fans, people that come to your show or any show of any artist, it shows them that you don't live this perfect life, that you don't have this just God blessing all the time, I mean, we all have that, but it really shows is you guys struggle just as much as us in the audience that are watching.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's where some of the best songs come from is a struggling moment that you artists have. And I think it speaks into that.
Yeah. Well, totally. And it was really interesting. There was actually a song I wrote probably early in 2023, maybe, uh, or 2024. I don't remember, but it was a song called This Side of Heaven. And I kind of wrote it with a friend who was experiencing a lot of just hardship in his life. And it was kind of just this reality, basically speaks to this reality of like, hey, in heaven, we're gonna worship God, and it's gonna be beautiful and so perfect, and there's gonna be no tears and no whatever. But on this side of heaven, we get to offer him a gift that we can't then, and that is worshiping from a place of doubt or pain or fear or, you
Mm-hmm.
know, mystery. Like, because we're not gonna like that in heaven, there's not gonna be any of that. So
Mm-hmm.
like we have that opportunity to do that here. And it was really cool. We wrote this song called This Side of Heaven. And I came across it while in the midst of mourning and grieving. And I was like, wow, it's wild how a song you wrote years ago, applies to them like where you're at a year later. And it was so beautiful. And I ended up kind of playing it at some of these live shows I did last year just to kind of share story and testimony. And it was amazing how many people came up afterward. Like more people came up for that song than like to talk about that song than like about counting my blessings even. And it was like they came up and they were like, that song, and then it would be an invitation for them to share their hurt and their story and their, hey, this loss happened to me or this whatever happened to me. And it's just a super interesting thing to your point of like everybody experiences stuff, but so often it's underneath the surface and we really don't know about it. And
Mm-hmm.
like, but everybody has some type of story like that. And that's the thing too. It's not even about comparing like who had it worse or whose was hard. It's like, no, like all of us have struggles and hardships that are real for us. And that's something I think we can all unite on as opposed to let it divide us. It's like, hey, we all have this going on. And, like how, like, what a beautiful gift it is to be able to turn that into, a song of praise to the Lord. To be able to be like, God, like you're still good even when it hurts.
Yeah, wow. And it just I ask this, when you write songs, when you're sitting in that room with friends and you're coming up with these songs, do you think that most of those lyrics come from personal experience for everyone in the room?
I think it really depends. I think the beauty of songwriting, and I think really good songwriters are both aware of their own emotions and stories, but also empathetic towards others. And so I
Mm,
think like you're able to really, I think the best songwriters are able to put themselves in the shoes of other people. So like at the time, we wrote it. I didn't feel like I had any big tragedy going on in my life, but I was able to put myself in the shoes of my friend who was writing, who was going through hurt and hardship. And I was able to like feel that as if I were him. And then now I like have this song and it's really real for me in that way. And so it's
mm,
like, oh, no, like this applies now in a totally different way. But I think like, as a songwriter, it really is just like, how do I if I'm writing in a room and someone is feeling something very strongly, whether it's joy or sadness or any of the emotions in between, I may be experiencing that in a personal level and have something I'm like, oh, I can apply it to my life here. Or it's maybe like, maybe I'm not experiencing that, but I can put myself in your shoes and feel how you're feeling. And I feel like that's what really makes great writers is the ability to
yeah.
do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. Talking about songs, you have a most recently single called Words Will Sing Forever. Let's talk a little bit about that. Where did that inspiration of that song come from when you wrote that down?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I've been a worship leader for I feel like most of my life. And so I love corporate worship songs. I love songs that
Yeah.
that the church can sing together and just lift up the Lord together. And I mean, I think there's a place for any type of song, and any type of song is in its own way a worship song. But songs that like you just unite the church to sing about Jesus are just my favorites. And I hadn't really released any of those under like my own artist. And so I was like, I really just want to do some of these and like have some songs like this. And so
Hmm.
one of my friends had this idea, basically just like a title called Words Will Sing Forever. And it's so fun because like the moment he mentioned the title, I knew exactly what the song was about. I like my mind goes to like, oh yeah, like we're gonna like like because you just see these words like in heaven, like the scripture about day and night, these angels and elders and saints singing like holy and worthy and all that stuff. So my mind instantly is like, oh my, that's so brilliant. Like that's such a great song title to go there and sing something familiar, but put a new angle on it, which I think are the best types of songs. And so, yeah, we just kind of developed it from there. We really wanted to make it kind of feel hymny, like kind of
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
if it's like easily followable, singable, and kind of and memorable in that way, but also something that like at least the chorus would be like you can teach it once and somebody immediately knows how to go along with it. And so that was really fun to write because it was just like how do we keep this so accessible and easy to the church And I felt like that's just really what we aimed at and felt like we got at the end of it. So
Wow.
been really excited for that one to come out and glad it finally came out. And just
Yeah.
excited, I've led it a number of times and I've heard people lead it a couple times and just excited to see what the Lord will do with it because it's one that's really special for me for sure.
Wow. No, it's really a great song. We've enjoyed it as well. Part of this podcast that we do, backstage, is we really want to learn more about the heart of the artist, because so many people, they just see a performance on stage, right? And
Mhm.
we want to give a platform where the artist can really share true heart stories, what God is showing them, what God is doing in their ministry. Because even though you're on stage and you're performing as a performer, that's your ministry, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
and sometimes you don't have enough time from a stage to really share your heart, so that's the whole purpose of this
Yeah.
podcast. So I kind of sometimes maybe ask a hard question, and one of the questions I want to ask you is, in this season that you're in right now, what do you feel the Lord is showing you, or what has he been showing you lately that you would want to share?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big things he's been showing me lately, he's speaking to me on our need for him and how often we try to do things on our own without even realizing it. And even in ministry, we're like, oh yeah, like Lord, we need you. But then how often do we actually like lean on him and like really put ourselves in positions where we would fall if he didn't show up? I think it's so easy to trust in it's easier to trust in ourselves more than trust in God, which is funny because we let ourselves down way more than God will ever let us down. you know and so I think that's just something I'm learning and I'm realizing more and more is just like how do we fully trust in God? How do we really lean on him? And I think so much of that is letting go of pride, especially like hidden pride. I
Mm.
heard someone say once like pride is like carbon monoxide. It's like a silent killer. Like, you don't even realize it's in the air and it's slowly like killing you. And
Wow, that's
it's one of
so
those things I
good.
think, yeah, most people don't even recognize where there's pride in their lives. But for me, it's been like, okay, anytime I start, look like being like, oh, wow, that person's doing this wrong, or that person's heart's wrong and they're doing this, or that, like, I'm like, wow, instead of pointing at them, like that should actually point at me, be like, what part of my heart is so prideful enough that I feel like I can judge my brother or sister like that, or that I think I'm better than them for that. And we don't even realize it. Again, that's why it's like this silent killer. It's just like these thoughts that come in our head and
Right.
we partner with them and we're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's just something I feel like the church needs to hear is like, hey, pride is dividing us and it's slowly killing us. And thinking we have
Mm.
to do things on our own is dividing us and slowly killing us. And we need to just humble ourselves and be like, God, we need you. And like, we can't do it without you. Cause like, that's the beautiful thing about humility is you can't force yourself to be humble because then it just becomes pride. It's
Right,
like,
right.
you actually need God's grace to be humble. And so, just to really learn how to lean on the Lord and be like, God, this is, I need you and I need to trust you more and I need to love you and your people more. So Lord, would you help me?
Mm.
And I feel like that's just something he's been teaching me a lot lately. And I feel like something that the church also needs to hear is just like, hey, we need Jesus and we really like we need to act like it.
Wow. No, that is so good. And it kind of leads into, maybe you've already answered it, but maybe you could speak a little bit more with what you're learning and what God is showing you. What would you say would be a piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Oh my gosh, so many things. um, I mean, I think one of the things I with alongside this is like learn how to rest.
Mm.
I think that's something in our culture, in our world today. We're really bad at actually learning to rest. And I think it's kind of falls on, two extremes. And one of them is like the workaholic extreme, which I think I found myself more in. It's like you always have to be working, you always have to be doing things. And that ties into the self-reliance because it's like, oh, if I'm not doing this, it's not going to happen. Instead of being like, all right, well, obviously we're supposed to work and put the effort in that we're called to. But at the same time, am I cultivating rhythms of rest and Sabbath and like all those things that are actually so important? Or do I feel like I need to do it all on my own? And, I
Mm.
trust myself more than God. So I feel like, learning how to rest in that place of like the workaholic thing. And then the other side of it is like a laziness, which actually isn't rest, And so
Mm.
like laziness isn't actually it's going to make your soul more anxious because you're putting things off, you're just vegging out, or whatever it might be. And I feel like we also have a culture that in some ways idolizes that comfort seeking laziness that's not actually true rest. And so I think it can be like on either end of it. And I think at different times in my life, I probably fell on different sides of it too. But I think I would tell my younger self, just like learn how to rest, like learn how to Sabbath, learn how to, again, lean on the Lord and trust in him and not feel like you have to do it all. But learn like what it looks like to just like really rely on God in all things.
No, that is so good. I'm glad you said that because being in ministry, outside looking in, people that are not in ministry, they may have that mindset that it's an easy job, you get to have fun, you get to talk about the Lord, you get to meet
Yeah.
people, and we do, and it is fun, but it's a lot of hard work and ministry. It can become work more than ministry if you
Yeah.
don't get that rest in place. And same thing with, I'm assuming, with an artist too. I mean, it may
Oh,
look
for sure.
glamorous traveling out on the road on a tour bus and going to all these different places, but ultimately, if you're not giving back that rest that God requires us to do, that could hurt us. It could hurt your ministry.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that even Jesus like went to rest and he like got
Yeah.
away from people to go pray. It's like if even Jesus did that, I think it'd probably be a good idea for us to do it.
No, that's actually right. That is so good. That's so good. So I have a fun question for you that I always like to try to maybe ask because
Yeah.
everyone's got them. What would be something on your bucket list that you've always wanted to do, you've not done yet, or maybe you've done something and you've checked it off your bucket list? Like, what is that? What is those things? Maybe a couple of them.
Man,
Some people like skydiving, which I would probably never do. It does not make sense for me to jump out a perfectly good airplane.
I mean, that was actually the first one that came into my mind. I'm like, skydiving. I would love to go skydiving. I think it'd be so
Really?
fun.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I would really love that.
The only
I've
time you're
always
going to
wanted to,
find me jumping out of a plane is if it's going down and I
this
have
is
a
going
parachute.
down. Hey, that's fair. That's fair. I really love the idea too of like, I think it'd be really cool at some point. Like, I would love to go hunting and like from like start to finish, like being involved in every process of getting like meat from whatever it is I hunt to my mouth. So like the hunting process, the skinning process, the meat processing process, the cooking thing, and then like into my mouth. I'm like just to like see that whole process from start to finish. I actually think it would be super cool. I'm not a hunter. I've never hunted in my life. But that's why it's a bucket list thing. So I think it'd be really fun.
Wow. Bro, well, let me tell you, we're in the Ozarks here in Missouri, where Light the Way's headquartered at. Like,
Yeah.
I can make that happen for you. Like,
Let's go. Let's go, man. I think it'd be
when
so
you're
fun.
Oh, bro, let me tell you, when you come through Missouri and you've got a day or two, let's make that. We can make that happen. Everyone around us here are hunters. It's like there's people. It's like almost an Ozark holiday for people. Like they take work off, they turn it into a
Yeah,
whole week event. I mean, yeah,
that's
that is so
awesome.
funny that's a bucket list item for you. Well, bro, I am super excited that you're going to be part of the Olive Branch Christian Music Festival. July 4th, we're going to have fireworks. We've got you. We got a great lineup coming up. And the biggest thing is it is a free festival. Can you believe it? Like it is free
It's
festival because the
awesome.
communities come together and the support is there. They love the Lord and it's a beautiful moment. We still ask people to go register. So maybe you're watching this, you're like, man, I want to be a part of that festival. How do I get there? What do I need to do? We ask you to go register, and that is only just so that we can have a capacity count, and just kind of make sure.
Right.
And if we get any information out, or we want to share something from one of you or the other artist, that's why we ask for registration. So, and you can probably get all that through our Light the Way ministry.com website. I guess the last question I have is what can we expect from your show at this festival? Like what is a Seth what kind of show do you have that we can expect?
Man, I'm definitely gonna make fun of my name at some point in the show. Te teach people how to say it. That's a common staple right now. So for
That's
sure
great. Thank
that.
you. I will set in on that.
Hey, there you go. I think lots of energy. I'm a pretty energetic person and just joyful and love worshiping the Lord. And so I think like just joyful worship of the Lord is something you're going to experience. And I always take an opportunity in some way or another to just share the gospel and pray for people, because
Wow.
you just really never know who's there. And for someone, it may be their first invitation to actually give their life to Christ. Or others, it's like, they may not have actually had someone pray for them in who knows how long. And so
Wow.
I think I always, if I have the opportunity, I always just try to make it a point to share the gospel message and to pray for the people there. And so you're gonna get those three things for sure.
Wow. No, I love it. I'm looking forward to, I was thinking of another fun question to ask you to kind of to wrap up the podcast. We're super excited about you coming to the festival this year. We actually need to do more shows together. I'm digging you. I'm digging the vibe. I'm digging what God's doing in your guys' life. So we need to do more than just festivals. Okay. So let's make that happen for one. But one of the things I thought real quick is if you could do a song collaboration with another artist, who would that artist be for you?
Living or dead, Christian or secular?
Mm, let's do living,
Okay.
and let's do, well, either or, secular or Christian. Let's open it up.
We'll do both and. I think for me, top option would probably Phil Wickham from a Christian point. Phil or
Okay.
Brandon, but I think Phil was really cool. He was like the first person I met in the Christian music industry. And just such an amazing, genuine guy. I would love to do a song with him. And then secular, Ed Sheeran. I'm a big Ed Sheeran fan.
Ah,
I think it'd be so fun to do a song with Ed. He's just so talented and so down to earth,
yeah.
real deal kind of guy. And so I'm like, that'd be really fun. So those would be my two top.
Oh man, I would have never even thought. But let's say so. Phil Wickham, if you're watching this podcast, you heard it. The request is
You
in.
heard
And
it.
Ed, same with you, buddy. If you're watching this
And if you're
podcast,
watching this thing, bro, hit me up. Hit me up.
let's make it happen. Well, hey, Seph, I really appreciated this time with you. We're looking forward to July 4th with you in Olive Branch, Mississippi for the Light the Way Christian Music Festival. It's going to be a great time, and it's been an honor to have this time with you today.
Hey, thanks, man. You as well. Been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. Again, get registered at lightthewayministry.com. Free festival, Olive Branch, Mississippi on July 4th. Going to end the night with fireworks. It's going to be an action-packed, great week, and we can't wait for it. So find out more information at lightthewayministry.com.